for the consumers, the audience of this video, those who Japanese and who meet for the first time the HESS brand, and you have a lot of wines. We have 30 bottles here.
We have two portfolios within our collection. Is called the Hess Collection, and this is on the left of the screen as I'm showing you. These are not all of our wines, but this is the first generation of wines that obviously were made by Donald Hess. Our Mount Vida Cabernet is the flagship wine. This is the first wine that we ever made. But these are, I think, more in a traditional style of Cabernet and Chardonnay, but they're made in a traditional way. And this is the first generation. The next generation wines that we are making are called Lion's Head wines. And we have Lion Tamer and Panthera. These are quite different wines. They're much more modern in style. The Lion Tamer wines use a lot of Malbec, which is, I think, very different. So they are very different wines to what you would traditionally expect. And we embrace a lot of technology in the way in which we make these wines, and we try to push the boundaries and see what we can do. So we, I think, are able to offer very modern styles of wine for people who are interested in that in our Lion's Head collection, and more traditional styles of wine in our Hess collection. In Hess, if you like wines that are, I think, very ripe and very ready to consume early, and they have kind of black fruit connotation, if you like that, then things like a Lomi are really, I think, a great option. If you like a bit more tannic structure, a more serious wine, maybe a little bit more European style, but still full, then I think Mount Vida, our Mount Vida Cabernet is the right wine, or even the Lion, which is an exceptional wine. But you know, it's an iconic wine, so it's sort of probably for a very special occasion. But you can also see with the packaging here that we are aiming for. You know, this is more traditional packaging that we have with Hess, and a more new age, a younger consumer. This is more irreverent packaging. So we're also talking to different consumers as they evolve, and we want to make sure that we're talking to younger consumers who are coming into wine in their mid-30s, into serious wine in their mid-30s, and that's who we find generally gravitates towards Lion's Head. We have two brands in Lion's Head. So we have the Lion Tamer brand and then the Panthera brand. The Lion Tamer, as I said, the story behind that is that we found that Malbec does really well up in Mount Vida, and we use it to tame the tannins. We get very good tannic structure from our Cabernet, but then we round it out using Malbec from Mount Vida. And then we also created a Cabernet where the main blender is Malbec in it. And so Lion Tamer to me is more maybe the masculine voice, the male voice of the brand. And then Panthera for me is more the female voice of the brand. So this is from Sonoma, from Russian River. And my wife's favorite wines are Chardonnay and Pinot. And so we wanted to make some wines from Russian River in a way that didn't confuse the consumer about Hess. So we chose Panthera. Panthera is the Latin term for a cat. So Panthera pardus is a leopard, Panthera leo is a lion. And this is where we get the phrase Panthera from. The image in the middle of the label, which is quite dynamic, you can see on this sheet that the label has kind of got a three-dimensional approach to it. The image is a mountain lion, and we get mountain lions around our winery. And in the mountains that separate Napa and Sonoma, we get a lot of mountain lions. So we chose a mountain lion, we chose a female mountain lion because we think that this is more the female voice. And these are the wines that my wife likes, so I wanted to please her. This is Donald Hess in the early 1970s, our founder, my father-in-law. The purpose of these videos, I think, is that you see how steep it is in the area that we're farming. You can see all the terraces in the background. And this is Mount Vida, which he was obviously attracted to, and which where he came up to. And he found what was a rundown or derelict winery. It was a winery that was built in 1903, but it had become abandoned. And he found that up in Mount Vida, and he rehabilitated it, and it became our home. And so this is our winery today, but this original building is from 1903, which is, you know, very old for Napa. And then he built these extensions over here that you see, which is a part of our Lion's Head cellar. And he made a home for his two creative passions, which are wine and art. And so we have a wonderful art collection at the winery, which people can come and visit for free. And it's a very core part of our identity. The two creative passions live there. When you look at the facility, a wonderful sense of location that we have, and we typically show people around in these ATVs, but you get a sense of the space that we have up on Mount Veeder, and the way in which we've left large amounts of what we own up there unplanted. So on Mount Veeder alone, we own a little over 1,000 acres, but we only farm 150. The rest is left wild, which is important to us because we have a sustainability value. That is one of our core things, is that we farm sustainably. And we want to make sure that we're only farming in the areas that make sense, and that we leave a large amount of the area for wildlife, and we make sure that we're not creating erosion and things like that. So this is sort of in essence a video showing you around our home. We have wonderful chefs and culinary experiences and things like that. But you get a sense of how we live up in the mountains, and I think this is a wonderful shot. I'm just going to take you on. This is the top of our vineyards. This gives you a sense. Snow is very rare. I know you in Japan get plenty of snow, but for us it's extremely rare where we are. But in the winter we get snow, which shows you just how cold it can be up on our mountains and around our home. So as I've said, these are vineyards that have a lot of struggle. The fruit is very concentrated. We only get 2 to 3 tons of yield an acre, whereas on the valley floor you would get 4 to 6 tons. So we get about half the fruit that you could get on the valley floor out of these vineyards. Very small berries, very concentrated. And that's a certain type of wine lover likes that wine, but it's a very powerful wine. But we also have vineyards that are on the valley floor, and this is our Lomi vineyard. And you can see it's very, very different terrain, very flat, much more sun exposure. And so this lends itself to a much riper style, and that is much more of interest to people who like fruit-forward wines, who like wines that can be enjoyed very easily. But these are the vineyards in the east. In 2014, our cellars were badly damaged by an earthquake. And I know you get plenty of these yourselves, but we had an awful earthquake in 2014 in Napa. And so all of this winery was with these old large format tanks, and we got badly damaged. But we took the chance to really repurpose it and to make a state-of-the-art winery facility. So we moved from these down to these types of tanks. These tanks are 2 to 3 ton fermenters. All of these tanks are double insulated, and they're controlled by computers, which we can control from our phones or from our laptops. And these really allow us to do 2 things. They allow us to keep the blocks that we farm in very small. So on Mount Veeder we have 13 different types of soil, and we have about 60 different types of blocks that we farm, depending on which way the vineyard is facing the sun, depending on its soil, depending on the gradient, how steep it is. Very different flavor profiles. Because we've now moved to these small formats, we can keep these lots in 2 to 3 tons, so we can ferment them separately. That allows the winemaker to blend very specifically to each year and specifically to the wine. So if you think about like a spice rack where you have lots of different spices, the winemaker is now able to keep them all separate and to choose, depending on the vintage, how he blends the wine. So that's been exceptional for us. We also use an optical sorter, which is very important. I don't know if you're familiar with these, but these are really exciting. And what these do is they take video camera, high-speed camera shots of fruit as it comes through the conveyor belt. And we can program the camera to identify the right type of fruit. So the density, the color, the size, all of that, the ripeness, and the hydration of the fruit. We can program it. In the bucket here, you can see that it's almost like caviar. It's perfect, clean fruit. And this has been a big change for us in terms of quality. The quality of the fruit, there's nothing other than grapes in there. And it's the grapes exactly that you want. This is our chief winemaker, Dave Guffy. I thought I would show him as well. Dave Guffy has just finished his 22nd vintage, and that is also important to us. I think one of the things that I forgot to mention about Hess is we have a really good continuity of winemaking. So he's been with us 22 years. Our other winemaker who just retired last year was with us for 35 years. And we have two younger winemakers who've been with us for 10 years each. So we have a lot of consistency and continuity, which is important to us as well.
The final question is the future. Now we're under the attack of the COVID-19. Actually, the market is changing, and also there's a global warming. Nature is also changing. So, what kind of future you image, or what kind of action you will make for the future?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, I think that the way in which we make wine is always evolving. And so we make wine, we're very conscious of what consumers are saying about wines as we make them. I think we will continue to focus on Cabernet first and foremost, and then red blends, and then Chardonnay, because that is our fundamental skill and capability. And I think that those have shown that they have been able to stand the test of time for hundreds and hundreds of years. So I feel like that is something that we will continue to focus on. Stylistically, we may, adapt to current trends, but in terms of the core competence of the wines that we make, I don't see us changing that over time. The way in which we deal with fire in California is something that is critical to us. The last 5 years have shown us that wildfires, which is linked to the variability in weather patterns that we're getting and the changes in the climate that we're getting. This has made it much riskier for us and much harder to get through the late stages of the vintage. There is a lot of work being done in Napa technologically to deal with that. In terms of the way in which we talk to consumers, I think that that's very different. In the past, it was quite difficult to talk to consumers directly. Obviously, with social media and digital advertising, it is much easier, but it's also a very noisy environment. And so I think that it's still critical that you have really good relationships with your distributors or your wholesalers, because they actually have much bigger connection to consumers or connection to accounts than we do. So for American wine producers towards Asia, towards Japan, and then eventually west of Japan, I think is also an important trend. And so that's one that we watch very closely. So thank you. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Really, thank you. その中でカリフォルニアのね、すごくこう面白いというかですね、本当一つのやっぱりリーダー的な存在であるヘスっていうところからですね、もちろんヘスこうやってねスタートして、さっきティムさんもおっしゃってたみたいにいろいろヘスの中でこうどんなワインがあるのかっていうのを試していくのもいいですし、それともちろんねそのカリフォルニアのワインっていうもっと全体像の中で見ていくのもすごく面白いと思います。そういったわけでですね、皆さんぜひお試しください。今回のね話でかなり本当にヘスだけじゃなくてカリフォルニアのワインっていうのがどういう感じなのかっていうのがお分かりいただけたかなと思います。またですね続きの動画も楽しみにしていただいて、僕以外のねメンバーからの動画とかも出てくる予定ですので、チャンネル登録とかしてですね次の動画待っていていただければと思います。ではありがとうございました。ワインバットの鈴木でした。ではまた。
ご紹介しなくていいですか？最後ご紹介しなくていいですか？
ご紹介。ティムさん。はい。そうだ、ティムさんでした。はい。Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.